Welcome to Real People, Real Life, where everyday conversations lead to extraordinary insights. We're all about digging into the lives of regular people who've achieved success on their own terms. From business and entrepreneurship to fitness, politics, education, and beyond, we cover it all. This is Real People, Real Life. And now your host, Ryan Chereau.
Well, welcome, Diana. Thank you so much for joining me on Real People, Real Life. My podcast is about having conversations with everyday people who have achieved success through failure, disappointment, but kept moving on. Podcasts are full, great podcasts, by the way, are full of very well-known, famous people. It's entertaining. But I've been in business for 32 years, and I've met thousands of people with amazing stories. And I just thought, what a great idea to let common people, everyday people out there hear how other people have struggled through life and came out on the other side in one piece for the most part. Now, I read your book and Behind the Smile about your son, Cody. Intense book. It's a really good read. You did a fantastic job. I do appreciate you writing the story. That must have been difficult, but I think it can help a lot of people.
Yeah, that's my goal. Believe it or not, writing it wasn't difficult. It was actually healing for me, but I mean, the story itself is difficult, obviously. It's unfortunate I didn't want to have to write the book, but I'm glad I had the outlet, which really helped me heal, to a certain degree. So thank you.
Absolutely. So you and I have some things in common. I'm going to make a guess based on your email that you were born in 1972.
Yes.
So was I. What month?
December.
Okay, so I'm June.
Oh,
So
okay.
June 1972, a couple Gen Xers talking here on this technology that we're trying to figure out.
Exactly.
But, I think we're getting it.
We're doing good. I think we're doing really good.
No, you sound great. It's a video's coming in great. So you were born in San Diego. I live in San Diego. I wasn't born here, but moved here about 20 years ago. When did you leave San Diego?
So I moved away. I was only 16. So in 88, I actually have an identical twin sister. But we were the last two babies. The other two had left, my older sisters. And my parents were just like kind of sick of the traffic and the population and the cost of living out there. And they used to go to Vegas all the time, just on little weekend getaways. And they loved Vegas. So yeah, we moved there. And I wasn't happy about it. I was in high school, which is, you don't ever want to leave your friends. That's your whole world at that age. But we moved, and I hated it at first. And then we adjusted, and now I have lifelong friends that I'm still in contact with out there. My parents still live in Vegas, but I'm actually out in Florida now. But yeah, it was a big move, but I ended up staying in Vegas over 30 something years.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what happened in 1988. Something happened because the whole town went downhill after you left. So you might as well come back.
Because I wasn't there.
I know you left and you took all the good with it. It's just gotten more expensive. It's gotten more congested. Unfortunately, we have a really bad homeless problem now and drug problem, which is just devastating. What you see downtown. Then you moved to so you 16 years old. That's a tough move for a teenage girl.
Yeah, absolutely. It was devastating and huge culture shock. Vegas, very different than San Diego. I mean, the main thing though, even I look back now, in 88, Vegas was a whole different city as well as compared to now. And I look back now, I'm like, I miss the days in the late 80s, early 90s. Vegas was a fun city once I adjusted. And it's so different now too. I mean, similar to San Diego, it's kind of gone downhill, homeless, drugs, crime. But back in the, early 90s, I had a blast. I really did.
Yeah, it's changed. We made trips. I've been here for 20 some odd years in San Diego, and of course, Vegas is a quick, wonderful trip.
Yes.
Good for about 2 days. I can handle all of that for about 2 days, and I got to come back.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Absolutely.
you grow up, become an adult in Vegas, and what was your career path?
So I started out in property management, managing apartments for quite a few years, kind of went up the ranks in that industry, and then got married, started having kids, and we went to go buy actually our second home. And doing property management is really similar to real estate sales. And we went to buy our second home, and I was just like, wow, like this is something I could do. And the money is crazy. And even if we were to just use my license to just purchase homes, the amount of money you save. So I was like, hey, I'm going to get my real estate license. And then I started selling new homes for a builder out in Vegas. It was it was fun. It was a lot of money. Very, very busy time. But then again, everybody probably recalls the real estate market and financial crash of '08. I lived through that, and that completely changed my whole world. But yeah, it was property management, real estate for the most part.
Yeah, that's another thing we have in common. So my business was a residential HVAC business doing heating
Mm,
in the nicest weathered city in the world. So
nice.
don't ask me why I started that business. Uh, but again, just like you, up to 2008, it was easy, right? Houses
Mhm.
were coming in, people were spending money, and
Right.
it devastated me as well. In your
Mm,
book, you talk about hitting that wall and the financial devastation, which hit a lot of people.
right. Yeah. Vegas was a huge one. It was creepy and weird. Like if you drive around during that time, homes were boarded up. They were foreclosing on many, many homes, and then the ripple effect into businesses as well. So for a few years, it became a little bit of a ghost town. I mean, if you didn't work in the casino industry, but even, in that, when the economy takes a dive like that, it really affects everything. So yeah, it was not fun, but I look back now and I lost everything, my home, my car, my life savings, literally everything. um but then the trajectory took me down the road of going back to school, getting degrees, and going into the mental health field. So although it was hard going through it, I can look back now and say, oh, it was kind of meant to be that way, I feel, anyways.
Yeah, what I've learned is that the best lessons I've ever learned in life is through difficult situations. It's necessary for, I think, humans to do that. If
Hmm.
everything went smooth, we would be shocked when something happened and wouldn't be able to cope with it. What was great about 2008 is to look back on it, and I lost the business, I lost everything, is I survived.
Yeah.
And now, people talk now today, "Oh my goodness, what if the real estate market crashes because it's on fire? What if the," and I just think, I'm not as stressed about it, you know? I
No.
survived. And
Yeah.
it was interesting because I lost my house. My business basically went down to nothing. It kind of trickled for a few years, but uh, I was happy. I had no bills. I was not stressed. And my son and I just kind of we went camping all the time because it was cheap and trying to just survive. And it's some of the best times in his life, and it was a great bonding. So here's another thing we have in common. So my first child and your first child, Cody, were born less
Mhm.
than a month apart.
Oh, wow.
So my son was born
Interesting.
December 30th, 1998, and Cody was born on January 19th,
Yes.
1999.
Yes.
So
Wow.
as a first mother, you must have been like, I mean, for me, I was nervous, excited as a father. I found out I was having a son. So, hey, I'm Italian. I was like, all right, I got my boy.
Yeah.
My practice wife, I don't use ex-wife, my practice wife at the time. 'Cause I've gotten better now. I'm married again, so I'm much better. I learned
Yeah.
a lot. But it was stressful for her. She was career. She was in the sciences.
Mm.
But everything went smooth, and we had this beautiful baby boy. Um, let's talk about Cody and the excitement you had, the fears. You're a new mom. You're in Las Vegas, correct?
Yes. Las Vegas, married, I think at that time it was maybe almost 2 years. Um, yeah, I mean, of course you're excited, nervous. I was the youngest in my family, so I didn't have any little brothers or sisters to kind of, practice on, or I wasn't around babies very much. And I mean, not to say that I feel like mothers kind of have a little bit of instinct, but yeah, it was a little stressful, adjusting to that first baby. And then my little bit of OCD would kick in too. I think I changed that poor boy's clothes 50 times a day, if he would spit up on something, or so, I was a little neurotic during those times, cleaning everything. I was just, the first baby, I think you kind of go overboard with everything. But of course, loved him dearly. He was the cutest little thing. He came, I think it was like 2 weeks early, but had a good pregnancy, good delivery. Really, I couldn't have asked for better, because I mean, compared to most women, I hear these horror stories of, just being sick the full 9 months, or a terrible delivery or whatever. Mine are all pretty good.
So Cody's born, and you write about the ride home from the hospital
Hmm.
and the constant crying, the touch. Babies tend to want to be touched. Actually, they have touch therapy for premature babies. But he was very sensitive to all of these things. But as a new mother, you know, you don't know. And then, of
Right.
course,
Right.
the common thing, which everybody's, oh, your baby's colicky.
Yeah.
Most common thing. It's colicky.
Yeah.
So what is colicky? I had to look it up. I mean, I heard it when
No.
my son was young. It's like, oh, maybe he's colicky, and I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess that's everyone's professional diagnosis.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, the only word I can think of is, oh, colicky means fussy. But yeah, he was ultra sensitive to his environment. I mean, not your typical baby. Now, as I learned at the time, I didn't know that, and I was just taking the doctors and the family members, word for it. But I still was like, this seems excessive. He was a very fussy baby, very sensitive to hot, cold, sound, light. And again, being a naive first time mom, I was just like, hey, maybe this is normal. But he didn't seem like my friends' babies that were kind of, having babies alongside me. But yeah, on the ride home from the hospital, he had his first poop, and we're driving down the street and he's screaming, and I'm just like, what? Like, screaming bloody murder, not. So I thought, oh gosh, is something wrong? Is he hurt? I actually had my husband pull over, let me check on the baby, because he's in the back in the car seat. And I got him out, and he's screaming, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with him? And come to find out, he had pooped his diaper, which again shouldn't be that, that response shouldn't be that drastic. But I just took note of it. I was like, that's very interesting. Okay. But that was something that continued on. If he, pooped in his diaper, or maybe he was getting too hot in the clothes I had him in. If a phone would ring and he was sleeping, he'd wake up screaming. Just taking him to, like, let's just say a Walmart to go grocery shopping, scream the whole time. So, I mean, this went on for his whole life, truly. But as a baby, I was like, hey, maybe I'm not doing something right, or is it me? He was not a very happy baby.
And that's where you go to. I forgot the book at the hospital. Sounds like you forgot the book on how to raise kids at the hospital too.
Right.
They don't give us those books.
Nope, they
You're
don't.
always worried, but you're such a trooper. You're like, hey, you know what? This must be normal. I can deal with this. Let's just have another baby in the same year, and that was Jessica, right?
Right. Well, she wasn't planned at all. She was
I've
born,
never heard to say an Irish baby. I'm like, what? She's like,
yeah,
Irish baby. I was, I've never heard of that before,
yeah,
but I
Irish twins is what
twins.
they called them. Yeah, Cody was born January 19th of 99. Jessica, my second born, was born December 3rd of 1999. So not even a year apart. Wasn't planned, but of course, you're happy to have another baby, but the way he was, how fussy he was, and how I was struggling as a new mom, you pile that on to lack of sleep, trying to get this routine. I actually cried when I saw that I was pregnant again. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I wasn't super happy, but of course, as I accepted it and she came, she was a blessing. But yeah, that wasn't planned, and that was a little rough because um, I was pregnant with her, and Cody was barely just starting to crawl.
Mm.
So picture that, trying to take care of a little one that's fussy, and then he's starting to go everywhere, and you're trying to contain him, and you have this big belly, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I was mostly. I have my one son, but what I hear from a lot of people is, you have multiple kids. My parents, I have three siblings, and it's their personalities are so different. But one of the things you describe is how significantly different. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, you're starting to see, wow, they're diametrically opposed. Jessica's easy. She's sleeping through the nights, more
Mhm.
quote unquote normal.
Right.
At
Right.
this point, did you start to think maybe there might be some behavioral or some sort of issues with Cody, or at this point you were still in the dark?
Yeah, I mean, I think intuitively, I always thought there was definitely something more to it, but definitely when she came along and I saw how, like, she breastfed very easily, where Cody never did. He never would. Um, so I was like, okay, this is how it's supposed to go. Cody would only take a bottle, and even then that was hard at times. He was so finicky about the formula, but then Jessica immediately breastfed, no problems. Yeah, and just everything went much easier. She'd sleep better. Her disposition was always just super easy. But it really was still challenging because if she would wake up and be hungry, I'd need to feed her, but her crying would wake up Cody, and getting Cody to quiet down was challenging. So yeah, it was super challenging, but it did show me how well, this is how it's supposed to be, I think.
That was a big contrast when you described it. Now, when so Cody 1999, Jessica
Mhm.
99, and then you have Savannah, correct?
Yes,
And
Savannah came in 2003. So Jessica was about 3, Cody was about 4, roughly, when Savannah came along. Yeah.
and by 4, were you pretty aware there was some issues, some perhaps behavioral or probably not diagnosed, but something
Right.
serious going wrong with Cody?
Yes. So I can't recall exactly what age. I mean, I want to say it was around 5, but I could be off. But I mean, I had to start putting Jessica and Cody into daycare because I did go back to work. And that's where the daycare brought it to our attention. Like, something's going on. He cannot be around kids. I mean, he's having complete meltdowns. Anytime he would be around other kids, whether I take him to a McDonald's to play or a park or whatever, he would bite or scratch another kid. He just could not be in normal, like, playful settings. And daycare really brought it to our attention. Like, it's a huge problem. Like, I kind of knew, but I thought, well, you don't know till they get into school and try to fit into that environment. So that's when we kind of were like, okay, something is seriously wrong. If the daycare is bringing it to our attention, it's not just us. And I think that's when we did start seeking some sort of formal diagnosis. Although we went to a couple doctors and they would just give it like a blanket, ADHD. And I'm like, no. And I started doing my own research because I'm always a curious person and I try to figure stuff out on my own. This is before I even got any of my degrees in psychology, but I started Googling, his symptoms, like sensitive to light, sensitive to sound, all these things. And I kind of made up my own mind that he had Asperger's, which now falls under the autistic autism spectrum disorder umbrella. Now they don't have these little diagnoses; it's just one big umbrella of different levels of functioning. But I had kind of figured that out on my own and made up my mind. I'm like, that's what it is. Now, sadly to say, 20 whatever 5 years ago, about um, there was no treatment per se. There was really no help. There was very little known, and so you kind of figure this out, and it's like, what do you do? And there are no answers as to what you do. So although I felt a little bit better, like, okay, now I kind of understand him, but at the same time it's like, well, what do you do with that? I didn't know how to help him, and neither did anybody else for a very long time. So school was rough. Yeah.
So you've got 3 children. You have one child that is experiencing medical issues, trying to diagnose it, not getting much help. Then 2008 comes around.
Mm-hmm.
That's just more than most people can handle.
Right. And then to top it off, I was recently divorced. So I was a
So
single
you have a
mom.
practice husband as well.
Yes. Recently divorced, real estate market crashed. I don't know what to do career wise. I have a son that's not, I don't have answers for. I don't know how to help him, 3 young kids. Yeah, and I lost everything. So I find myself trying to, figure out where to go, what to do. I actually decided to move because I couldn't find any work in Vegas, not even like restaurant serving jobs, because like I said, the whole city just got really weird with the crash. So I decided to move to southern Utah, where my ex-husband was from, because we were co-parenting. Um, and that's where he's from. And, it's a smaller town. And I thought, I'm willing to try anything. I have to, have a living, make a living and provide. So I moved to Cedar City, Utah, and got a job selling manufactured homes. So it kind of was a little bit like real estate, a little bit different, but I was like, hey, it's an income. And, with anybody on the autism spectrum, change does not go over
Mm.
well. So, I mean, I'm talking little changes, just even like leaving the park from playing to go home. That's a transition that would send Cody into a breakdown. Um, so picture moving houses, moving cities, changing his routine, changing his environment. Mom's going to a different job, different school. Um, so it was truly devastating. I mean, not only for him, but for all of us. I found myself at that point having to get on welfare, food stamps, because like I said, I lost car, house, any type of 401k or savings I had. I literally moved there with some money that my sister gave me, like $100 in my pocket. So I had to get on welfare, which I'd never done. I was making, high six-figure income selling real estate. So all of this was just very, very devastating for all of us. But for Cody, it was even more difficult. So yeah, that's how I ended up in Utah. But the bright side of that is where I decided to go back to school, because I had never gone to school. Because you're in real estate, what do you need to go to school for? I mean, yeah, I went and got my real estate license. That was a little bit of some classes, but nothing big. But I had this like epiphany to go to college. And thankfully, Cedar City is a college town. It's small, but they had Southern Utah University there. So at age 37, single mom, went back to school full
At the
time,
bottom of the
actually.
economy,
Yeah.
3 children, divorced.
Yeah.
And then you go to Southern Utah University, correct?
Yes.
And you decide, hey, you start taking your general ed,
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you want to do. And there was
Yeah.
a psychology course, and it
Yeah.
just hit you. Something about that. How much of that was like, wow, I may be able to learn more about my son with this psychology path?
I can't say that I consciously thought that. I just know it was so intriguing. It was just like something inside of me was like a burning fire, like this is what I get excited about. This, I mean, such a simple class. I was enthralled. I was just, I mean, every time I go to that class, I just was like, I wanted to soak it all up. So I don't know if that was subconscious, of course, going to my psychology lingo, subconsciously, maybe that was it, but that really wasn't even consciously my thought. I was just like, I like this stuff. I want to learn more. And so I changed my major. I'd initially started because I wanted to go into nursing, but I changed my major to psychology and continued down that path and fell in love with it. Truly, I really did.
Yeah, I could tell the passion in your book, the mindset of how much that hit home. As an amateur psychologist who used to play one on TV, just kidding. I think that a mother's intuition, there was something there
Yeah,
because as parents, we want the best for our kids. We want to fix things, right? I mean, as
right,
a father, I got to fix it, right? I got to
right.
fix it. And mothers,
Yeah.
they're nurturing, they're trying to fix it. They want the best for their children. Um, I read between the lines saying, I just think there was something that maybe hit home with that and said, subconsciously, as you say,
Right.
but it ended up actually being quite beneficial. And it's interesting because we do talk on the podcast about education and college and things like this. You took the psychology degree, and I do talk about psychology degrees because a lot of people just go get their bachelor's in it. Um, might be an easy way to go, might be a little bit more difficult with the science stuff. But you decided, hey, this was my passion. This isn't just a piece of paper I'm getting. And you jumped over to uh, get your master's.
Yes. So after I got my bachelor's degree, again, small town, Cedar City, Utah, I was like, okay, there's not much, work here, regardless if it was in the field of psychology or otherwise. I was like, okay, I got to go back to Vegas. And, again, my parents' sisters were still there. So I did move back to Vegas. At that time, Southern Utah University didn't offer a master's in psychology. So I moved back to Vegas, got a job, believe it or not, in timeshare. Weird. But I did do an online course for my master's in psychology. Continued on that path, hoping to, after the master's, get an actual job in the field. Because again, there wasn't much you could do with this bachelor's in psychology. So yeah, I was living in Vegas, got my master's degree, and immediately after I got my degree, I my first job in the field of psychology was as an inpatient, um, unlicensed social worker at a psychiatric hospital in Las Vegas.
Mm,
So I went straight into, these are the people that are in crisis mode, being on a legal hold, being admitted against their will. So I got to just go straight for the, I call it good stuff, but I mean, it's not, obviously it's catching people at their worst time, but that is kind of what I thrived in. I loved being in that environment. I truly did. It was weird. I don't know how many people can say that, but I did really well. I loved it, and I felt like at least I could try to help them have some sort of foundation and help them as they leave to have resources outside of the hospital. So again, I didn't have my background in social work, but it's kind of what I did and what they called it. Yeah, I worked in an inpatient psychiatric hospital, which did afford me to understand my son as he became even more sick.
yeah, your informal education with your son kind of
Hmm.
laid the groundwork for you to be comfortable in a very difficult environment in
Yeah.
that social worker setting. Um,
Hmm.
as parents, our babies, our little kids, their full agency is reliant upon us, right? So there's still
Yeah.
a lot of control that we can do. And then we always hear the stories of, their teenage years. And boys and girls, have their own difficulties. Boys, since I have a son, my concerns were, the acting out, the huge level increase in testosterone. What am I going to do with all, with the girls? What am I going to do? Just all these questions. Um,
Right.
reading about Cody and his entry into, his teenage years, he, and it seemed even younger, he was taking a lot of agency in his own life. His way, he wanted it his way. And I can only imagine how that increased with puberty and with his teenage years.
Yeah. Yeah, I never felt like I could control. I don't like to use that word because, but in a sense, yeah, he had his own way of doing things, thinking. He never conformed to societal norms. In school, he was constantly being suspended, kicked out, brought up to the principal's office. I mean, and I set the expectations and with all three of my kids, with disciplinary, type actions. I mean, it was all pretty much the same. And so I knew that with my two daughters, things were working, like, oh, you're grounded, or I'm taking away your phone, or whatever, it would work. But with him, nothing ever worked. So, I was at a total loss when it came to him. I mean, many nights laying in bed just crying because I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. He was really smart. So that didn't help because, I mean, again, he was almost genius on certain levels, especially when it came to like computers and all that. So he was very challenging to try to guide into the right direction or try to help him conform. Not that I wanted him to necessarily be like everybody else, because I loved that he was unique. However, to be able to, survive in society, you sometimes do have to conform to certain things and expectations, such as, school and work and whatnot. But he just never did.
Yeah, we have this innate need to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And even through some of Cody's, in your writings and some of Cody's social interactions, where he would push back and such, he still had that need. There was a story, I believe it was from the after school coach, or the after school. Let me see. That was
Oh yeah.
Jordan James. I like this guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, he's
yeah,
great.
I mean, one of the great things is that life brought some pretty amazing people into Cody's life.
That is
Obviously,
so true.
obviously his mom, uh,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of times, unfortunately, kids that don't fit in are just completely shunned. And
Yeah.
and there's people that will do that. But his tenacity, there was a lot of sadness in this book, Diana, but it was very uplifting too. And there was things that I was reading that told me, man, a lot of people need to live their life like Cody did. I'll give you
Mhm.
an example. What I absolutely loved was the school prep rally.
Oh yes.
And now you take somebody that's on the autism scale, right? They tend
Hmm.
to be introverted, they tend to be locked in, right?
Right.
In some way he was, right? He was locked in and the outside world would just bug him and give him this anxiety. But then he gets out in front of what, 2,500 people
Yeah.
and he comes alive.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of my favorite stories too. And I still to this day I have a video of it, and that's such a cherished video for me. Thank God for modern technology because I have such beautiful memories. But yeah, what an inspiration he was and still is to many, many people, including myself, because, yeah, he was made fun of a lot because he was different, but he so lived his authenticity. He never apologized for how different he was and how outgoing he was and how loud he was, and just, he didn't have a filter, which embarrassed me many, many times. But yeah, he would always dance in school and he'd get in trouble for it. Because he would create such a distraction. And so the principal said, okay, I'm going to make you a deal. Because of course he wouldn't listen or follow any rules. He's like, I'm going to make you a deal. You can go out and dance in front of this prep pep rally that we have, before a game or whatever on a certain day. I'm going to let you go out there for like 5 minutes and go dance. And then you can get all the, attention you want and show everybody how good of a dancer you are. He would shuffle a certain type of dance. And so, yeah, the principal let him do that. And I have a video of it, and the crowd just goes wild. It was a huge high school in Vegas. So it was big. It was a lot of kids. But yeah, he did that. And I know he was a little scared, but he would stay up all night, like kind of practicing, and he did it. And I mean, it's just, I don't know how many kids at that age would go out and put themselves in that position, being so vulnerable by yourself. It's not like he was on a dance team or something, just literally by himself, and go out and dance in front of the whole entire school. That's how brave he was. And he always had to do what he wanted to do.
What I think people could get from that story, and what I get from the story is people get so bound down by fear. It's an evolutionary thing. It protects us, it keeps us alive, but it also holds us back. And you made a comment which is very true. He was nervous.
Yeah.
What he did and what people need to do when facing fear is just do it and go after it. Practice,
Yeah.
practice, practice. And yeah, you're going to fail. And a lot of people take failure as opposite of success. Well, I say it's necessary for success. You have to fall down. You have to understand where the limits are so you can break through them. He practiced all night. He goes out there and he kills it. And then a new person comes into his life, Jessica, his friend.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she's so beautiful. I mean, inside and out. Yeah, that was one of his one true friend, because of course, you have these people that come and go, but she's one that's stuck around through the good and the bad. That was later in high school. They became friends, and I think he kind of felt a little bit stronger about her than she did about him. I mean, she was definitely a good friend, but he kind of had a little bit of a crush on her. But regardless, when he moved out on his own, his first apartment, she was there. She brought in all this stuff like from the Dollar Tree or whatever to decorate, or cups and towels and stuff, and she would show up there and help him decorate his first apartment. And then later on, when he was struggling with addiction and all that, I would call her and I'd just be like, where is he? Is he okay? Can you come help me? She would. Yeah, she's been a very good friend to him, and really truly to our whole family. I consider her part of our family now.
Yeah, from what I read about her, she was a special person. She is a special person. She saw through and into his soul.
Yeah.
And accepted him for who he was.
Yeah.
And, again, there's a lot of tragedy in the book, but I wish I knew Cody, because the attributes that this kid had, people need to do in their own lives. It's, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to make, one of the things he was doing, which I found interesting, is it wasn't, hey, I'm just going to go out there and dance. It's, I'm going to be the best dancer in the world.
Yes.
He spoke, or he would express his dreams in what most people would say is hyperbole, but he would really go after it and become like, wow, he could actually compete doing this.
Yeah.
He did that with the programming. I guess his friend Brian, I believe it was.
Yeah, Brian was another one that stood by him too. Again, he wasn't easy to get along with, because he was very different. He was obsessive at times. He would fly off the handle very easily, get mad very easily. So he really couldn't keep friends very long, or he'd make them pretty good, but they wouldn't stick around, because again, he was a little bit of a roller coaster as far as emotions and actions and behaviors. But Brian was another one that remained his friend through it all, and long into his adulthood. But one of the things, as far as like setting your mind to something and becoming number one, was DJing. He also was an amazing DJ. Yeah, which I have
on your wrist.
Probably.
So to your sisters, correct?
Yes.
Now, Aunt Danielle.
Yeah, my twin sister.
Correct? Yeah. I would
Yep.
definitely want to talk about her. I like that. I like her. She sounds like an amazing woman. And
Yes.
you seem to have a connection with Cody.
Yeah, so that's where kind of the DJing comes in, the electronic dance music, EDM. So I was always trying to find ways to calm him or have him focus his energy because he had so much energy. And one of them was music. And he did come upon the EDM style music. And that's where my twin sister in the 90s, she was into that music. She'd go to raves out in Hollywood. She was very, very almost fanatical about DJs and that music and whatnot. So she did connect with him on that. And so they would always talk about music and going to, see these DJs, which of course, going to raves, you had to be at least 18, sometimes 21. So she did finally take him to his first big music festival out in California. And, thankfully, again, we have pictures of that. And, but he fell in love with DJing and music. And so I really pushed him to become a DJ because I was like, put your energy towards something, that could become not only wonderful for everybody to be able to listen to, just for him to be able to just focus. And I did put him in DJ school out in Vegas for quite a while. He did end up producing a little bit of music, which I still have, thankfully. Actually, one of his friends gave it to me because we went through all his belongings and I came across some flash drives. And I didn't really know for sure what was on them at the time, but one of his friends was there and she was really big into music too. And she's like, "Can I have one of them?" And I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know I gave her the one with the music on it, which kind of made me sad. But I did reach out to her later and said, "Hey, the one I gave you, did it have music on it?" And she did send it to me. So yeah, he produced some music. He was DJing. He absolutely loved it. And yeah, he was always said, "I'm going to be the number one DJ." And, unfortunately that didn't happen, but in my heart and his friends and family, he was.
Yeah, Jessica says he is. Your
Yes.
daughter. Yeah, she definitely says he's the number one. Do you happen to have your book with you?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah.
There's a couple of passages. If you don't mind reading, I'd love it.
Sure.
I want to start with James Jordan. The reason why I like James is that he was a good male figure in Cody's life, and boys, need somebody, a male figure who's strong,
Mm-hmm.
but also who's willing to take the time. And he's an after schools guy. He really doesn't need to, but he
Right.
seemed to have connected with Cody. And on page 80, he writes something really, really nice. And I think
Yeah.
people should, to get a better idea of the outside looking in on Cody.
Yes. I love it too. James is a phenomenal human being. So memories from James Jordan, the after school program director. Cody felt everything so deeply for a kid. When he laughed loudly. He smiled wide. He was compassionate, loyal, and loved deeply. His frustration, his pain, and his anger he felt just as deeply. When his anger would get the better of him, it could last for hours. Cody was a complex kid who suffered mentally more than I can imagine. When Cody was frustrated and angry, he was hard to be around, but when he was in a good place, he was so giving, so funny, creative, and loving.
Yeah. To take the time when you're dealing with all these after school kids to actually get to know somebody like that. It's most people just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And to have somebody like James to actually embrace it and deal with it, I think from my point of view, that would be huge. I had men figures in my life as a teenager who, when I was going through my troubles, and they talked to me strong, but to this day, I look back and say, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they were there for me. And it just shows you that Cody takes everything to the extreme, from his emotions to his anger, to his DJing, to his dancing, his programming, um,
Mm-hmm.
and they aren't just dreams, they're actions. See, a lot of people, I used to have I've always, for a long time, I have a board that I put all my goals. And a few years ago, I changed it from goal board to action board. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and Cody took action on the things that he did. It wasn't, oh, I like DJing. Well, I'm going to do it 100%.
Right.
I like dancing. I'm going to do it 100%. So many people can learn from that. And the secret to success, people look at, oh, maybe they're just natural. Well, Cody had all of these difficult challenges, and what separated him from the people not doing it is that he just worked his butt off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kept trying all night, working on stuff,
Yeah.
just obsessively. And that's really the secret to be successful at anything. Look at you at 37, you go to college.
Mhm. Yeah.
That doesn't happen too often.
No.
And not only do you do that, you go and get your psychology degree. Oh, I think I'm going to continue. Get your master's. And then I caught something that I didn't catch in the book, but I caught it. You got your certified dementia practitioner, or
Yeah.
CDP. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's something recent I did. I actually work at a memory care community here in Florida. And that was just an additional certification that helps you specialize in helping and working with those that live with the different types of dementia. So yeah, I'm kind of, even though I'm actually in sales and marketing for the community, I'm hands-on. I actually work in the community with the residents, help feed them, help, do activities with them. So yeah, that's an additional certification I just did in the last year.
And that's all hard work. And there's no rules. And this is what people need to understand. Well, you got to 18, get your do. Oh, well, I'm 30. It's over for me. No, there's no
No,
rules. You just get out,
right.
they're set by society. If you put your mind to it, you're going to do it. You're going to succeed. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. It's
No,
not. It's not going to be easy. The excuse, well, it's too hard. Yep. Guess what? It is.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
What other excuse do you have? Because
right,
it is hard.
right.
Anything worth doing is difficult. So
Yes.
raising my son, I had the opposite experience. Had a great son, real well behaved. My practice wife and I, we had joint custody. We got along just fine. And of course, fear, right? Teenage. When I hit teenage, I was good at hiding my misdemeanor mayhem from my parents. Stealing a bottle of beer, or
Yep.
luckily, my best friend's, his older brother, I think was 13. We were 13, 14. He tried to get us stoned. Didn't like marijuana at all to this day. I got so
No.
paranoid. So that was a good thing for me, because I'm like, I don't get it. I'm not interested. But
No.
alcohol was that was the thing that in the Gen Xers, smoking and
Hmm.
alcohol. I didn't smoke. I couldn't
Me
figure
neither.
that.
Yeah.
But, we'd go to parties and have some drinks.
Yeah.
That was a fear for my son. Well, Cody dived into this just like he did everything. Okay. If he wanted
Hmm.
to do something, it wasn't to have a beer, it was to get as much as he could get into his system. Um,
Right.
I can't imagine, as a mom, seeing that deterioration. I mean, it's a normal fear, right? To think,
Right.
okay, keep your kids away from drugs and this and that. But all of a sudden, you just see it going to the extreme.
Right. Well, of course, he did have to take things to the extreme, like he did in everything in life, but he was very intrigued by the like hallucinogenics, the true like mind altering drugs, drugs that you and I didn't grow up with, such as DMT,
I'd never heard that.
ketamine.
I
Yeah,
never heard of I heard no ketamine.
yeah,
Matthew Perry, unfortunately,
right. Yeah.
passed from a ketamine overdose. But the D was DMT. Explain that one. I've never even heard of that.
So I'm not even going to try to pronounce the real name DMT. It's a weird long word, but basically, I mean, it's something that we already have in our brain, and that substance actually is floods into your brain when you die. But it really it's very strange. I can't even explain it that well, but it does fall under hallucinogenics. So, he would see things, hear things that aren't there. So he liked that though. Like that, thinking about that to me, like scares me. I don't want to be like that. I mean, do I like to get a little buzzed and relaxed like with alcohol? Sure. But that level of drug scares the crap out of me. And, not very many people use it. So when he would go like to the psych hospital eventually, they would test for drugs and it would always say he didn't do any. And I'm just like, hey, I know that's not true. He was pretty straightforward with me. He did hide it up in the early stages of it, but then once I kind of figured out he was doing drugs, he would just tell me straight up, Mom, I'm going to do drugs and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And in his mind, he actually said those drugs helped him. So there's two things that come to mind when he says stuff like that. He believed that doing those types of drugs, which you can see out there, there's a certain group of spiritualists that believe in doing those type of hallucinogenics, such as ayahuasca and things like that. You kind of go on this spiritual journey. They're kind of from the Native American beings. I mean, they do it for different reasons than just to get high. But so, he would always say it's a spiritual journey that I'm on and it helps me see things differently and whatnot. So it's kind of hard. Like, what do you say to that when you're a mom? It's like, he thinks in his mind they're helping him. It wasn't the normal response from a teenager like, oh, I like to get messed up, I like to be high, it's fun. That was, he would do these things by himself. So again, how do you approach that? Like, he was just so different from my normal parenting skills. I'm just like, what do you say to that? What do you say? And so
goes against everything, right? It's like,
yeah,
he's just telling you he's doing it, and you're like,
yeah.
Drugs are interesting. Society has put a blanket on drugs, right? Everything's a drug. Drugs are bad.
Yeah.
Drugs are bad. And it really has slowed the research into things that may, I'm not a professional or anything, but may actually have some medical purposes.
Right.
One of the things that I would enjoy drinking alcohol. That was my drug of choice, which we don't even call it a drug, even though it's one of the most deadly out there.
Yes. Yeah.
When abused. But it's because I have a storm in my brain. And Cody, I guarantee you, had a storm way bigger than my storm in my brain. Mine was much more organized, but alcohol helped calm the storm.
Right.
Perhaps the psychedelics helped organize in his mind some of these things he just couldn't understand. There's a lot of research on psilocybin, microdosing, and maybe they'll start doing some more research. The unfortunate thing about psychedelics is that for people that have the propensity for psychotic episodes, they can lock them in.
Right. Exactly. And that's kind of what happened to Cody. In my book, I kind of go over it, like what came first, the chicken or the egg. I know he had mental health issues and did that. I know he self-medicated with drugs and alcohol, but again, was the psychosis going to come no matter what? Or was the drugs just the catalyst? Or I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, he actually had his first psychotic episode at age 20. After doing all these drugs. And that was his first hospitalization. Actually went to the hospital I was working at in Las Vegas. And then he got on some medications and went home, and he became a little bit more stable. And had his 21st birthday, which was so scary to me because I'm like, okay, before, at least there was a little bit of a challenge for him to get access to, going into these, raves and going into the store buying alcohol or whatever. So I was fearful, but and he was living with me at the time, but then he met this girl, kind of his first real serious girlfriend, and she was into the rave scene and they did drugs together. And so of course she persuaded him, oh, don't take those medications. There are sexual side effects with a lot of those meds. And so he did stop taking them. And slowly I noticed, I was like, you're not taking them anymore, are you? Because I could see the old ways coming back. And again, he just said, nope, and I'm not going to, and I'm going to do whatever I want. So I had to kick him out of my house once again. And that's when he became actually homeless and lived in his car for quite a while. And again, you're kicking your son out. It's just, it goes against everything as a parent. Like, you don't ever want to do that, but I can't let you stay here using drugs. I definitely can't condone all that and support all that. So, I kick him out, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm just sending him to his death sentence, because that gives him the opportunity to literally do whatever the hell he wants with nobody, looking over him or anything. Um, and he spiraled again. Um, like a couple instances, he became psychotic again, and he was standing on top of his car in an intersection in Las Vegas, just standing on top of it, dancing, blaring his music. And I had to go get him, and I got many phone calls like that in the middle of the night of people, saying, you need to come get your son, or it's a cop saying, yeah, you need to come get your son. And so he just spiraled and brought him back home with me again in hopes of getting him to, stabilize, go get some meds, go get help in any way that he could. And again, that maybe lasted a few weeks that he sort of agreed to all of that. But
You wrote a
it did.
contract.
Yeah, I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna write down all my expectations, make it very clear. So there's no way he can say, you didn't say that, mom, And keep in mind, he's 21. So, so I wrote down all my expectations, that you will get a job, you'll go see a psychiatrist, you'll stay on your meds, you'll get some sort of counseling for addiction, blah, 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 just a long list of expectations. And he was very reluctant to sign it. I mean, it took a while. I had to, it wasn't just like, okay, I'll sign it. I was like, this is the only way you're going to live here. Um, and I think it took me days to get him to sign it. But he finally did. And I don't honestly believe that he ever had intentions of following any of it, because he didn't. But
I
he
think, yeah,
still,
I think the approach, was wise, and here's why. When I read that, I thought to myself, okay, perhaps this is a turning point, because when he commits to something,
mhm.
he has a track record of sticking to it to the T.
Yeah,
And I'm
true.
thinking, okay, and you do go into that it took him a while to sign it, because in his mind he's going through it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this is a turning point. This might be something that he holds himself accountable to, because that's kind of his history when he commits to something.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's not the way it went.
No. And yeah, you would think you're right. But I can't remember exactly how long it was. And he did okay, but eventually he did move out on his own again, and it wasn't a point where I kicked him out. It was just kind of agreed upon. It's time for you to live on your own. And I don't think he blatantly used or anything. I couldn't tell too much, but he did move out on his own again, and then that's when I, a few months later, moved away out of Vegas down to Florida. He was living on his own, again, managing pretty good. I mean, he was very uh, dedicated to, like you said, whatever he does, he does. So
Yeah,
working for him,
he's very functional out there when he was out there. I mean, he gets
yeah,
out there with Krispy Kreme. He goes to
yeah,
Amazon. He works for
yeah,
DoorDash. And,
yeah,
you even point out that regardless of what he does the night before, he was always showing up to work on time. Um,
right. He worked
that's why
very hard.
I was thinking maybe that contract's gonna work, because, when he commits to something, it's like, don't get in
Yeah,
his way, he's gonna do it. Uh,
right.
here's the thing that was going through my head as a parent. How the hell did you stay sane yourself? I mean, literally, not in the I mean,
Right.
how did you not have a nervous breakdown? The nights, the worry, him driving on drugs. I mean, we always worry, hey, here's your driver's license. And what you're worried about are other drivers and things. I mean, you have all these other factors that as a mom, you have to sit there and try to sleep and be productive.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know how you did it.
Well, it's not like I can say, well, I did one thing and that worked. I really do feel like, I mean, I have some strange beliefs, that him and I had a contract when we came down to this earth. And he chose me to be his mom for a reason. And I definitely chose him to be my son and agreed to come down to this earth and do this because I had a lot to learn. And I did learn a lot from him. I think going into psychology, like you said, definitely helped me understand mental health, understand human behaviors, understand myself more. I definitely have some of his tenacity and resiliency in me. Again, I can't say I did one thing and that's what got me through it. There wasn't, but I definitely have a lot of support in my family and friends as well. Knowing that I'm loved and supported through all of that definitely helped me. But I look back and I don't know. It was a lot of heartbreak, a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah, it's undescribable. You'll have to read this book. It's 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 unimaginable, and you'll have to be strong. Perhaps you were chosen to
Mhm.
go through this struggle with this
Yeah,
particular boy who turned into a man, so that perhaps you can help other people, which you're doing now, which is a positive spin on something that is so tragic.
right.
So you go out to Las Vegas. Um, it was scary for you. You talk about that. It's the first time you drove along that significant distance by yourself. I think
Yeah.
your sisters were out there. Is that correct?
Right. I had an older sister and her husband move out here. It's the Southwest Florida area, and then my twin sister moved out here. Again, we're from San Diego, but we're like, we can't really move out there. It's too expensive to survive. So what's the next best thing? Florida beaches, perfect. Less expensive. And then at that point, my youngest she was like just graduating high school, so I thought perfect opportunity to just go and do what I want to do, go somewhere else, just kind of start over, no little kids to raise. So yeah, I just pick up picked up and moved, sold all my belongings or gave them away mostly, furniture, everything. And I just packed my little car and drove. It was a 3.5, almost 4 day trip by myself in a car from Las Vegas to Southwest Florida. And yeah, that was the last time basically I got to actually see my son, hold him, hug him. Um, I was excited to do it. Of course, a little nervous because I'd never really been away from my kids that much. They would go back and forth to Utah sometimes throughout
They
their
grow
lives.
up. They grow up and get
Yeah.
their own lives, don't they?
Yeah. So yeah, I just moved out here to Florida and had only been out here 3 months, and I get the horrible phone call.
So 3 months, you're getting your new life. You're with your sisters. Things are going smooth in Florida for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I started a job out here at a psychiatric hospital, kind of similar to what I was doing in Vegas. Yeah, it felt good. It was going really well.
And then the phone call.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
again, I've said this a few times. I can't imagine. So walk me through that day if you don't mind.
yeah, sure. Well, what led up to it, so right when I first moved out here, Cody Cody was always very challenging, especially when he was using drugs. I mean, he didn't have a filter to begin with, but when he started using drugs, he would say and do very strange things. And so when I moved out here, he had made a weird comment to his sister. And I had it. I mean, by that time, I'm just like, I am so over your drug use and just what you say and do, and it affects people. So I, kind of went off on him and stopped talking to him. And so did his sisters because they were kind of in the same boat as me. They're kind of fed up with, the weird comments he makes and his drug abuse. And so we all kind of had stepped away at that point, not really talking to him, at least on a daily basis. And so, it'd been a couple months. I hadn't heard from him. I mean, I would send him little texts here and there, but he wouldn't respond. So I believe he had blocked me. Actually, he blocked all of us because he didn't want to hear what we had to say. So a couple months had gone by that I hadn't really any contact. My older sister did reach out to him at one point. I asked her to, because I was like, I haven't heard from him in a while. And in the back of my mind, I was always fearful that he would overdose or hurt himself, because he had made those comments before. So in the back of my mind, it was always a possibility, but of course you never hope that it actually happens. But I was actually at work one day, and I was just looking through some old pictures on my phone, just, randomly. And I just started crying, and I really couldn't even stop crying. It was kind of weird and out of the blue, but my heart was just so broken. Of course you don't want to not talk to your son, but at the same time, it's like, you can't deal with it anymore.
You
But
got to
that
protect
day,
yourself, and you got to protect your other kids too.
right, right. So, and at that point, he's 22 years old. I couldn't control him anymore. Grown adult. I'm in Florida. He's in Vegas. So I kind of just almost emotionally kind of let go at that point. And I just had a weird feeling one day at work, looking at pictures and just crying. I just was so worried about him. And then, you know, uh, I don't know how long after that, but I was at work and I saw a call coming in from him. And again, I hadn't talked to him in 2 months. And I was so, taken aback. And part of me was like, do I answer this? Because you don't know what drama lies on the other side. Is he going to be screaming at me? Is he going to, is he going to be high and psychotic? You just never know. But I was like, no, I want to answer this. So I did. And it was him. And I was like, hi. And he's like, hi, mom. Um, and he's like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm pretty good. And he's like, good. You like it out there? I was like, yeah, I like it out here. And he's like, oh, I'm so glad. And then I was like, how are you? And he started crying, and he said, somebody's placing microscopic drugs at work, on my desk, and in my house, and trying to get me framed. And it kind of went on a little bit more than that, but basically he was paranoid and in like having delusions, and something I'm kind of used to with him. And so I knew right off the bat, I was like, he's still using, and he kind of went on, and I just said, well, why don't you call the police? Not kind of just going with him on that journey of a delusion, but also thinking in the back of my mind, well, maybe the cops will see how psychotic he is and take him to the hospital again and
Right.
get him some help.
An indirect way
So
to try to get him some help.
yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with that. And it was a brief conversation, but I told him I loved him, and he said he loved me. And I said, I'm at work, I can't stay on the phone. And I let him go. Later that night, I turn off my ringer when I go to bed, because I don't sleep very good as it is. So I don't want to have phone calls or whatever wake me up. But I woke up to missed phone calls, and it was him. And I was like, oh, crap. So I called him back. He didn't answer, and sent him a couple texts like, hey, sorry, I missed your call. I was sleeping, how are you, or whatever. Didn't ever respond. And then, a few days go by, which again wasn't abnormal. So, but I tried to call him again and didn't answer. It went straight to voicemail. And I'm just like, something's not right. And then at that time, my youngest daughter, Savannah, was out here living with me, and me and my twin sister, we lived together. And I get a phone call, and it's from a blocked number. And I'm just like, well, that's weird. And usually blocked numbers, in my experience, are police officers, because they don't want you to have their number. And knowing Cody, who is always in trouble and getting, picked up or whatever, I was like, crap. That's where I thought it had something to do with him. And this gentleman left me a voicemail. It was a police officer in Vegas. Please give me a call. And so I was like, oh, again, thinking it's something, Cody did something wrong. So I called him back, and he said, are you the mother of Cody Ward? And I said, yeah, I'm his mom. And he said, well, do you know where he is? And I said, no, sorry, I've been trying to get hold of him. He's not answering, and he does have a history of drug abuse and history of mental illness. So, it could be anything. He's like, well, we found his car up in the mountains outside of Vegas, Mount Charleston. He did go there a lot he loved being in the woods, because, his dad growing up in Southern Utah, they always go out hunting and stuff. And he would go up there and meditate or whatever. So I was like, well, that's not very surprising. You found his car up there. Yeah, it makes sense. I was like, yeah, he goes up there sometimes. And they're like, well, his car's here, but he's not here. And I said, oh, okay. He said, we're going to keep looking for him. We'll let you know. I said, well, again, he has a history of drug abuse and mental illness. I'm worried, something's wrong. And he said, well, we'll let you know, maybe we need to file missing person report, but let us do some more investigating. I said, okay, please call me back. So this is Saturday evening. And of course, after that kind of phone call, I'm sick, I'm sick to my stomach, and start kind of going down the spiraling of thoughts. And and hours go by. He never did return my call. I'm trying to call that number back, even though it was blocked, but I think I could call it. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but I did call it like 15 times and he didn't answer. And I'm just like, okay, what's going on? And then it was a little after midnight, 1:30 a.m., I think, somewhere around there, I get another phone call and it's from a Las Vegas number. And so at this point, again, I'm just, I'm upset, hysterical, crying and not knowing what's going on. And on the other line was somebody saying, is this Mrs. Ward? And I said, yes. And she said her name, which I don't remember to this day, but all I remember is, well, this is so-and-so from the Las Vegas coroner's office. That's all she had to say. I knew. And I just dropped the phone, started screaming and crying. And my daughter was actually sitting right next to me because she knew too. She knew what we were dealing with and she heard it too. And she lost it and just screamed and cried for many, many, many hours. Don't even know. Again, I dropped the phone. I don't even know what she was saying. And she kept trying to call me back because when somebody dies, you have to go over how to proceed, his belongings, where the body's going, all that. But I was like, are you kidding me? I don't really care right now, And then being so far away from Vegas, that just, it made it all worse because I was just like, I need to get there. I need to get there. I don't know to do what, but that was just a familiar place for me. That's where he died. That's where he lived. So yeah, a few hours later, we were on a flight to Vegas, all of us.
What a nightmare flight.
Yeah, absolute nightmare. Absolute nightmare.
So they eventually ruled it a suicide, correct?
Yeah. So at that point, I thought maybe he had just overdosed because he did, do so many drugs. And come to find out, he had a big tub of his belongings in the back of his car. And he had written on the tub, please give all these belongings to the girlfriend at the time, ex-girlfriend. They weren't really together at the time, but they were talking. He was obsessed with her. And so he was leaving all these belongings to her, which is crazy because I never did give those to her because she didn't deserve them. But, and then he also, during his paranoia, had gotten a whole bunch of phones. I mean, I think it was like 5 phones. I still have them. But he always thought like the government was hacking his phone. So he had to go buy a new phone. So he had all these phones in that tub. And come to find out, we were going through them while we were out there and we found a video of him basically saying goodbye, but saying he had to go to the other side to help guide this girlfriend. And, which again is, although he took his own life, it was almost in somewhat of a selfless way because he thought he was going to go to the other side to help her, and so many other things. But they also found in his toxicology report he had overdosed on Tylenol PM and Benadryl. He did have some amphetamines in his body and alcohol.
Yeah, so many people that get to the point of suicide, they speak of pain, they speak of they can't handle this life anymore. And I was kind of expecting that, and I was taken aback by, and I got the same impression as you that, hey, I want to go help people. I really believe, based on how you wrote it and what he said in the video, that he truly believed that he's going to be more effective.
Right.
Which just speaks to his uniqueness.
Right. Exactly.
Well, as we're finish up here, Diana, sorry, I do want you to read one more passage because I want people to see Cody through the eyes of those that knew him best. And I really love what Jessica, your daughter, wrote.
Okay.
And on page 72 and 114, there's two passages that, if you don't mind, I would love for you to read.
Absolutely. Okay. One night when I was having relationship issues with my boyfriend, I asked Cody to come spend time with me because I was lonely and sad. He didn't hesitate and came right over. We got into a deep conversation of life and the things we had been through growing up. I told Cody about a girl who had cerebral palsy and how so many people were mean to her, and he started sobbing. I grabbed his hand and held it tight and told him that she was okay. She was so happy and positive and was living a great life despite her past. He sobbed and said to me, "But how can people be so mean to a beautiful person?" I hugged him and let him know that he is such a sympathetic person. That's what makes him so special, because you don't come across such an empathetic person very often, especially a man. That was Cody for sure. And then what was the other page?
114. This is beautiful.
Okay. Oh yes, Jessica, his sister, read this at the candlelight vigil that we had for him. My angel, my twin, my DJ, my hero, Cody. You were an angel without wings here on earth. You truly didn't give a damn what people thought, and I completely admire that about you. These past 2 years were the most trying times for you, and I know the things you said and did weren't your true self. You didn't mean anyone harm. I know your beautiful soul truly was selfless, caring, non-judgmental, and beautiful. You would give the shirt off your back, literally, to anyone who needed it. Your warm smile and infectious laugh could brighten anyone's day. You meant the world to me. You do mean the world to me. I know you are truly my guardian angel now. Thank you for the 21 years you gave me. Thank you for the hard times and the good times. Those memories will live on in me forever. I know you're home in heaven with Granny now. Your legacy will be carried on through us all. We miss you, DJ Codex.
The number one DJ in the world, according to Jessica.
Yes, definitely.
And then let's show that tattoo one more time and tell that story. There it is in his handwriting.
Yep, that's his handwriting. We took it off of a piece of paper that he made. Me, my twin sister, and my 2 daughters got it. And then I have another tattoo that I got for him. And it's the, I don't know if you can see it. Sorry. Oh my gosh. It's the symbol for suicide prevention. It's a semicolon. It just means, don't let your story end here. Just take a pause if you're having a rough life, and don't let it end here, and just keep going.
So parents that are dealing with similar issues, where could they go for help? What can they do to get support and see that there's other people out there that understand?
Yeah, there's a lot of good organizations out there, nonprofits actually. So NAMI is one of them, which is NAMI, which stands for National Alliance for Mental Illness. They have free services to everybody. So they're one good one. Another one is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They're a good nonprofit too. I'm actually working with our local chapter here right now. We're planning a motorcycle ride fundraiser that'll be in March of 2025. But those are 2 really good organizations. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, but those are free at least. So it doesn't matter if you have insurance or money or not. They're all free.
Fantastic. And where can people find more information about you and anything else you're doing?
My website is dianawardauthor.com. My book, there's a link to buy my book through Amazon on there, or you can find the book on Amazon. But yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, all that. My Instagram page is Diana Ward Author as well.
Excellent. Well, listen, Diana, you've been very, very generous with your time. I do appreciate it. I know this is a hard story, but from my perspective, it was uplifting. I think people should read the book. I will try. This is the book here.
Yes.
And everyone should go to Amazon and get this. Even if you're not dealing with a child or a friend who has mental illness, there's a lot of lessons that us normal people that we think are so normal can learn from someone like Cody. And I always encourage everybody to get out there, do their best, and don't give up and go after, don't make your dreams reality. There's no rules. You can do it. Well, Diana, thank you so much. I wish the best for you and your family. You have a wonderful family, wonderful story. And thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Real People, Real Life. Our passion is to have real conversations with real people who've made it. Real people who've made it, who did it on their own terms. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, catch us on Twitter or X at RPRL Podcast and on YouTube at Real People, Real Life Podcast.